All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. I can see our participants joining us right now. Well, we are about to jump on in to today's session. Great. Well, I'd like to welcome you all to today's panel, Districts in Action, What's Important and How Do We Face It? But before we jump into this very time-sensitive conversation, I would like to welcome my co-panelists, and each one is going to tell them a little bit about themselves. So starting us off, I'd like to welcome Carla Jefferson. Carla, tell us where you're from and a little bit about your role.
Hi, hello everyone. I am Carla Jefferson. I am in South Carolina. I work for the Darlington County School District, and a lot of people say, where's Darlington? If you're a NASCAR fan, it's where the Cookout Southern 500 is. If you're not a NASCAR fan, we're about an hour and a half from Myrtle Beach and an hour from our state capital in Columbia. And I currently serve as the proud principal of the Darlington County Virtual Academy. Before that, I served as a school level administrator. I've been a curriculum facilitator. And right before my appointment as principal, I served as an instructional technology coordinator for the district. So really excited to be here with you all to talk about how important it is to create digital citizens, how to grow them.
Excellent. Thank you. Can't wait to hear all about your experience and what might be on the horizon for us. Our next panelist, our co-panelist here, Marlo Gaddis, welcome. Tell us where you're from and a little bit about your role.
Thank you, Sophia. My name is Marlo Gaddis. I am the Chief Technology Officer in the Wake County Public School System in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I'm with my sister over here with South Carolina and North Carolina. We're here together. The Wake County Public School System is the largest in the state, 15th largest in the U.S. So we have about 160,000 students and 198 schools. Like Carla, I started as a teacher. I was a kindergarten and first grade teacher. Did some work with technology facilitating and worked in curriculum for a while, and then kept trying some different districts. I've been in 4 different districts across the state, and I've really enjoyed my time here in the state of North Carolina. So I'm also looking forward to this great conversation and some really interesting ideas that I know I'm going to take away from both of you.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait to hear all about it. I'm Sophia Mendoza. I'm so excited to join this conversation, coming to you from Los Angeles. My pronouns are she, her, and ella, and I feel it's really important just to note the land that I'm on right now is the historical land of the Tongva people and the Tatavian and the Chumash people. But with that, I'd love to recognize our ancestors. I think we have so much to learn from our ancestors and our current elders. But let's just jump right into the questions. I know our time is very precious here. When we think about setting the stage for digital citizenship, especially in the context of a systems approach in a district, really looking at those practices and policies that are actually working. And maybe we're starting our journey. How do we put some of these systems in place to really create better environments for our students to be great digital citizens? So let's kick it off. And I'm going to toss this out to Carla first, and then we'll tag team with Marlo here. What are some of those actions that you've done in your district, and what you're doing to take on supporting digital citizenship? I know it's going to look different in different districts, so I'd love to hear how you're taking on this role, some of these actions in digital citizenship.
Thank you, Sophia. I think it's important that as this world continues to evolve, that, citizenship at the end of the day is citizenship. It is important that we teach skills to our children and tools about how to be safe offline. We talk to them frequently about not talking to strangers and, who do they share their information with and who do they trust? And we have to do the same thing in a digital format. We have been, my district is probably almost the polar opposite of Marlo's. We're a small rural district. We're about 10,500 students. We have 20 schools, but we have been one-to-one with technology for about 10 years now, believe it or not, through a process. And so as we started giving tools to children, at that time I was at the district level, and we talked about how important it is that we teach them how to use them effectively. So, we don't hand pencils and papers to children and books and say, oh, you've been around these all your life. Grab this book, you read it. We teach them how to do that. We teach them how to write. The same thing with how to use digital tools appropriately. And so what we didn't want to do was to put it all on teachers, because teachers are overloaded enough. They're already stressed out. And so what we decided to do as a district is use resources that we had found available to us that, yes, we could have given to teachers to say, create these lessons. But again, that's one more thing. So at the time, myself and 2 other colleagues, we worked to build out a district level digital citizenship curriculum for our students that would be led by our teachers. So we worked to create the lesson plans. We curated the videos, we created slideshow presentations. So it was really like grab and go. And all we asked them to do was to work through it and have those conversations. And so that's kind of, where we started, and we kind of helped to roll that out. We provided support to teachers who may have needed additional support with the technology in general. And I mean, it was, here's your question, and then here are possible responses, and here's your response, because it was new to us too. Like, I'm sure all of us have seen where adults don't always behave well and are good digital citizenships, good digital citizens. So how do we help them to do that? Because what we want is that we go back, and if a child misbehaves, so children misbehave with paper and pencil all the time. We pass notes to our friends that have nothing to do with school at all. We don't take paper and pencil away from them. So we don't want to do the same thing with technology. So how do we teach them, and how do we revisit? So one of the things that I'm super proud of, that even now as my district continues to adapt, although I'm no longer in that role, we had that shot of the arm that's done at the beginning, but then they've also worked to curate lessons and resources for teachers to use on a regular basis. So these are ongoing conversations that they have with our students. And then if they behave inappropriately, we can go back. Remember, we talked about this. So it's just that ongoing conversation that we have all the time with children being good citizens in this world, and transitioning that to that digital space as well, so that it really boils together. If I'm a good citizen, I am nice and kind and polite to my friends and my classmates in public, and also online as well.
Wow, that's right. It really looks like there was a lot of thought went into this. I really appreciate how you laid it out there. Citizenship is citizenship, and how it's really like that explicit use. But at the same time, you wanted to make sure your educators could take, grab and go, because yeah, you're right, Carla, in our pre-service, I don't remember any courses that talked about digital citizenship. Right. So, wow, thank you. And that continuous evolution that you are doing, you are really demonstrating and modeling how we as a system need to continue to evolve. So, wow, thank you. Thank you for that. So many nuggets. I'm writing them down. Hope you all are getting these too. But if not, we're going to have a recording of this, so don't worry about it. Marlo, love to hear some about the action that your district is taking to support digital citizenship as well.
Yeah, I'm envious of Carla's work she's done with teachers. We took a little bit different approach in that I don't know how many of our panelists are parents as well, although from the opening session, it looked like there were lots of folks who were both teachers and parents. But one of the things that we started doing pre-pandemic was really partnering with our parents. We feel that digital citizenship is not just the role of one person, right? It's the job of the student to be a good digital citizen. It's the job of the parent to help raise a good digital citizen, or just a citizen, to Carla's point. And it's our job as a district to help do that as well. And so we took on a little bit different approach in that we partnered with our counseling and support services team and really began to focus on CASEL's social emotional learning things from self-awareness and decision-making to social awareness and all the different pieces to that. All of a sudden, self-management was the other one I was thinking of. So in doing so, what we realized, and I love that Carla's analogy of the pencil, right? And the book, we taught them how to read, but when we think about a device itself isn't going to do anything, or at least not yet. We don't have artificial intelligence really truly doing a whole lot yet. But when we think about a device, it's really important that we understand that students can use it for good, but they can also use it for things that are not so good. And how that happens is it's layered on, digital citizenship is actually layered on top of our social emotional wellness. So if we're struggling with self-regulation or self-management, if we're struggling with our relationship skills, it tends to come out in this society in our technology usage, whether that's through bullying, through social media, through inappropriateness from those. So we really do. I know Richard was talking about it's a team sport, and it really is. And so we try to work on how do we support our parents in this work by providing specific controls, but also by educating them, helping them understand what do they have. It has gotten more difficult. I won't sugarcoat it. We were not one-to-one, so I'm envious of Carla for being in that role pre-pandemic. But when we went in the pandemic, we're learning a lot of things that we would like to do in better ways. And so as we work through this process, it's really about, for us, the partnership with our parents and with our students moving forward and how we do that.
I mean, I can't say like we are better together when we also include our families, our caregivers, our community leaders. You know, I really think about, like, you know, what you were saying, we are the first generation to raise families, educate children, and build communities in this parallel universe, the physical world and the digital world. So, you know, you're onto something there, Marlo, and I hope to see that this inspires others in their districts to start thinking about what can we bridge the work of digital citizenship with social emotional learning. Carla, you wanted to add something. I see your hand up.
I did. And I also wanted to answer some of the questions that I see in the chat. I don't want anyone to think
let's do it. Let's do it.
We're ignoring them.
No, of course not. This conversation.
And so, there were a few questions about, like, what's the timeline? It probably took us about half of a year. We worked over towards the end of the school year in the summer to get the lessons ready to roll out for teachers and for students. And then another question was, how did we do it? So our middle school and our high schools, they have built in what we call advisory time, which is built on relationships already. And so they would use that advisory time to do that. And so, you know, a lesson may take a couple of days. We didn't want them to take away from instructional time because we know that pressure that teachers feel, you know, knowing the responsibilities that they have with the standards. And then in elementary, in some cases, it was the responsibility of the media specialist to do the lessons with them, but we had conversations. What we asked teachers to do was to go back to those conversations, maybe when they saw inappropriate behavior, or if I have a teacher that is interested in blogging, then the conversation goes, all right, so remember, we don't put our first and last name. You know, we've talked about being safe online, and we don't put our first and last name online. You know, these are the different ways. So what we had everybody to look over the content and curriculum. And then, so for example, if a child got caught searching for inappropriate material, you know, like then you had a conversation, the principal said, now, remember you had, you know, in the beginning of the year, we talked about this, this, and this. And so it was definitely an ongoing thing. Like I said, middle and elementary probably were easier to implement it as, you know, content teachers during that advisory time, but elementary teachers, in some cases, principals said, I just want my media specialist to be responsible for it, or I just want my school counselor to be responsible for it. But then we took it back to real world examples that we knew teachers would see in the classroom.
No, thank you for that additional context. I think those strategies are really helpful when you want to bring this to your system, to your folks in a very thoughtful, intentional way. Yes, the integrated approach, you know, thinking about media literacy as well, you know, that's huge. Our librarians are an untapped resource. So let's make sure we're having this conversation with our library specialists, our media specialists too. A couple of things I know we're going to be wrapping things up soon, but I wanted to make sure, because I get this question asked, you know, a lot, you know, like, where do I begin? Where do I start? What are some like really impactful strategies? I found in the 10 years that LA Unified has been on this journey, because it is a journey, you know, related to that time question. It doesn't happen overnight. It is a long-term, long-haul plan. Is looking at what policies you might have in place in your system. How can you collaborate? We've heard from both of our co-panelists here. It really takes that collaboration. So who are you collaborating with when you're creating these policies? You know, we're in Digital Citizenship Week. What better time to kick it off for an ongoing conversation around digital citizenship? You know, looking for those entry points like social emotional learning and well-being. You know, this year with our district strategic plan, digital citizenship is listed as a resource for social emotional wellness and joy. And really looking at, we've evolved, you know, to what you all mentioned earlier, this evolution, this ongoing, you know, safety, security, privacy, that protective approach, really moving into an empowered approach. How can we use digital for good, leverage it for making a social impact in our communities? So I'm just very excited about all of these different opportunities that have come up. So with that, I know there's lots of challenges that come our way when we want to incorporate digital citizenship into the school day, into our system. What have been some of the challenges, or mostly like, how are you overcoming any of these challenges? Either Marlo or Carla.
I don't mind starting on this one. So I think the challenge is, this is an area, and Sophia, you mentioned this before, you know, we're at a new stage, right? Most teachers, some of the younger ones may have some, but most don't know how to be good digital citizens themselves. So our leaders, our teachers, our parents, we're all struggling right now understanding the landscape of digital. I mean, our own country leaders are struggling with that. So it's not hard to be in the same boat when this is concerned. So I think one of the first things we have to do is begin to learn ourselves, right? Really begin to understand what are some of the skill sets we need to have. One of the things that we did just to help, because we've talked about our librarians, whether you call them teacher librarians, whether you call them school library media coordinators, whatever you call them. They are an amazing group of people to begin with. But information skills, which has always been their area, have changed as well. One of the things that we did, we have one of our own former North Carolina librarians who is now has just written a book about digital detectives, and her name is Jennifer Lagarde, and she and Daryl Hudgens have wrote a great book about strategies and teaching our kids how to be good digital detectives, how to know how to recognize some of the things that happen out there related to information skills. So we've had them bring them in and start working with Jennifer and Darren to really begin to understand that. And then that propagates throughout our schools. They work with teachers and students. And so some of that begins. So sometimes it's just beginning with a small step from learning yourself to beginning with one group of people to begin to understand where to go next. And we have to hope, like you said, Sophia, it's not a short-term sprint. This is going to be a marathon, getting us where we need to go.
I think I definitely agree with everything that Marlo said. Like, it starts with self, and we have recently not seen a lot of good examples. So how do we change that narrative? How do we have students to think critically and look at what's appropriate and what's not and why, when sometimes our leaders don't demonstrate, that same behavior. And so we frequently talk about, when I grew up, it was you did what an adult told you to because they said so. And now children are growing up in a society where it's not necessarily safe to believe everything that an adult says. And so it is important for them to be able to think critically and make sound judgments based on the information that they have. I think a lot of for challenges for us initially was a lot of the questions that I saw in the chat, like how do you get teachers to buy in, and that kind of thing. And I think it comes back to management, period. I think if we take it from the aspect that citizenship is citizenship, whether it's digital or not, and it's our responsibility to teach children how to better engage in the society. Like they're our hope. They're our hope that this world is going to be a better place. That it all starts with, and I believe with everything, the why. Like, why do we do this work? Why do we think it's important? What do we hope to gain from this? How do we plan to make the world a better place? And so if you go back to the why, and then you get your buy-in from your school leaders who are going to really be the ones to monitor this and push this. But my principal talked about when we first started was the reduction in discipline problems that he saw, the issues that we don't have with plagiarism or bullying, and creating a more inclusive environment, how that has changed once we consistently have those conversations. So I think that would be my answer for that one.
Yeah, great. I think you both have really lifted a lot of what's on everyone's mind. Like you mentioned, Carla, you're touching on a lot of what our participants, and thank you participants in the chat for uplifting these questions. I know our time is going to come to an end, so I'd love for Marlo and Carla, take a look at the chat. If there's a question that you'd like to answer before we end our session that you'd like to address, let's do that, because I want to make sure that our participants get any question answered before we have to take a break here.
Sophia, one of the things I keep seeing is protecting identity and plagiarism. Sometimes I think, and Carla mentioned this earlier, this compelling why. Why is it important to do this? Why, what are the reasons behind this, and why should students care? And truthfully, why should anybody care? Because that's not something that everybody's quite gotten on their radar yet. So I think we have to do, as leaders, we have to do a better job of being good storytellers and bringing examples to the forefront of what happens when we are not, and why it's so very important, so that people understand that this is not some fictional story, that there are things that actually happen that you need to protect yourself from, not in a scare tactic way, but in a, here's how we prevent these things from happening to us.
Love it. Love it. Thank you.
I see a lot of amazing resources in the chat that participants are suggesting, and I am like, yes, all for it, because I think at the end of the day, the easier that we can make it for everyone, the more opportunity that we have for it really being implemented with fidelity. And so in some cases, we talk about money and funding, and everything is not going to be for free. And so we have to put our money in things that we prioritize. And if we know that building great citizens for our area, for our communities, for our world is something that is important to us, it may be important to put our money where our mouth is and look at the resources that are available to be able to help for that. So, and oh yes, what Marlo said, beware free, right? Exactly. So, we have to do that if we want to protect our children and to create global citizens, the global citizens that we want.
Indeed, I can't, I completely agree, especially around the resources. When I first came into this world of digital citizenship, I went down a rabbit hole. I Googled, I searched, but there were only really a handful of folks really at the gold star level. And with that, I felt it was really important for our office. We serve over 25,000 educators. I wanted to make sure that they can come to one place and get everything they need. And I'm going to share with you that one place, everyone, because we've worked really hard. And I say we, I really mean we. There's been an entire team that's been contributing to this website, and we'd love to invite everyone to this website that has a plethora of resources. You want to know what it might look like to kick off a Digital Citizenship Week? We have several examples there for you to see. And with that, we're going to end our session kind of with a final thought from our panelists today. Marla, I'd love to hear a final thought as we end our session. And Carla, I'd love to hear your final thought before we end today.
I think for me, it's just intent, right? My big word is intentional. If we're not intentional about what we do and we just kind of throw the spaghetti on the wall, nothing does stick. And, sometimes, and especially now after the pandemic, when people are so very tired, it's an easier shot to do that sometimes, but we save a lot of time and heartache by really being intentional and thinking through that on the front end.
I agree 100%. I think Marlo stole my word. I definitely think like we can no longer treat it as an alternative. We are seeing over and over again in social media the negative effects that it's having on our children, on our schools, in our learning spaces. And so that's where it starts. If like citizenship and tools that they go hand in hand. I will never give a child an iPad or a MacBook or a Chromebook or whatever tool that I'm using in my building access to that without having conversations about that. And so at the end of the day, it's imperative that we continue to work with fidelity to create global citizens that will positively impact our world.
Well, thank you so much for your final thoughts. And that's a wrap on this session. And we're going to be seeing more of you in our next sessions. We have so many speakers here lined up for you, and we hope that we see you soon. Thank you so much, and we'll see you back in the lobby where you can select your next session. Thank you.